Hello, and welcome to the BigTime Strength Podcast, featuring small school strength coaches from around the nation that are making the big time where they're at. This episode is brought to you by TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr is the leading software for high school and colleges that provide coaches the ability to write programs online, generate more than a dozen reports, and even train athletes remotely for side income. Right now, if you sign up with code BigTime, you'll receive a free APRE programming template, which works automatically within TeamBuildr. No more spreadsheets and workout cards to track training maxes that change day by day. Automate your programming without outsourcing your programming with TeamBuildr. This episode is also brought to you by PowerLift. Taking your athletic facility from concept to completion can be a challenge. At PowerLift, it's our goal to make the process as seamless as possible from start to finish. Our weight equipment is made with the toughest material that can withstand excessive use from coaches and athletes. It's sought after for its unique design, customizable appearance, affordability, and our superior warranty that training facilities want and need. Our weight rooms are designed with the athlete in mind, and we pride ourselves in our ability to outfit athletic facilities based on a team's unique goals. That's why high schools, colleges, universities, professional sports teams, and athletic performance facilities around the world have chosen us to help maximize their strength training facilities. Call us today to be contacted with a rep in your area, and give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to see for yourself why our clients are PowerLift proud. Now let's get to this week's episode. Hey, Coach, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on and sharing some information with me and with the listeners. Appreciate you taking some of your evening. When you're Eastern time and I'm Central time, it's always just a little bit later for you. So I apologize about that, but thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. But, we didn't actually talk about this. We're Central too.
Are you really?
Yeah, you don't hit the Eastern time zone until you get to the Georgia and Alabama border. So I'm Central, so I'm good.
Oh, well, I take it back. Whatever I just said. We're good then.
Well, that thing's actually weird. You go up into I don't know, you kind of go up and over a little bit and you're still on Eastern, but Alabama's Central. So, whatever. So, but I appreciate you having me on, man. This is a great platform. What you guys do, you and Amanda and all you guys, y'all do a great job with this. I'm a listener. I listen to podcasts when I lift. Funny enough, I know a lot of people, they think I'm nuts when I say that, but that's my time. I listen. I actually make notes. I keep a notebook with me, and so I listen. I'm a big listener to this podcast, so I'm really humbled, and I appreciate you having me on.
That's awesome. Hey, let's tell people about your background, where you're from, how you got into strength and conditioning, some of the things that you want the listeners to know as we enter into this conversation.
Well, I'm actually from here in Alabama. Grew up here, and I ended up. I played college football at UAB here in Birmingham, and from there, real long story short, my path in life ever since I was 12, I thought I was going to be an Army Ranger. That's what I wanted to be. I had met a guy up in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, actually, and he was a Ranger. And from that point on, I wanted to be a Ranger. And the only other thing I had given any thought to was coaching. And, I was going to enlist after high school, and the football thing came up, and my dad, he said, well, look, go try it. If you don't like it, then, you can drop out and enlist. And so it worked out, ended up, playing and starting, half my sophomore year and then all my junior and senior year. So it kind of worked out. And then my plan from there, I was going to go be an Army Ranger, serve 2 years and then hopefully get into officer candidate school. And the only other thing I had thought about doing was coaching, and my GA spot opened up, which never happens, right? I mean, those things are so hard to get. And my dad, 5 years later, gave me the same advice. He said, well, hey, look, try it. If you don't like it, then, enlist. And here I am. So it worked, it ended up, this is where the good Lord wanted me, I guess, is to be coaching. So I was a GA for a year and a half. And then I got hired to coach tight ends. I coached tight ends for a couple of years. And then I moved over to offensive line, coached the offensive line at UAB. And then when Pat Sullivan went to Samford University, I moved with him. and was offensive line coach, assistant head coach, co-coordinator, all those titles. And then 2014, Pat retired, and I tell people this: I was out recruiting, and I heard on the radio that they had hired the next coach, and I was about to get on the interstate going north to go recruiting. And when I heard that, I just got on south and came on home because I knew I was in trouble at that point. Even though Pat wanted the whole staff to stay, and I knew that Coach Hatcher, his offensive line coach, he had been together their whole career, so I knew I was probably not going to be at Samford anymore. And that year was a terrible year to be looking for a job. It was just a year where there was not very many jobs at all. I had given some thought into getting into high school ball. I missed a lot of my kids' childhood, coaching college ball. And high school coach that I had known for a long time recruiting, he called me the day after Christmas and said, I've let you think about this long enough. You interested in the job? And I said, yeah. And so that's how I got into high school. He hired me to be the offensive coordinator, and kind of as a side note, he said, hey, you're going to be running the weight room too. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Hey, I that kind of threw me for a loop. I enjoyed lifting, but I didn't know I wasn't a strength coach. And, but it's like one of those deals where you're tasked with doing something. I'm going to invest in it and try to be as good at it as I can. And, from that point on, that was 2014. And from that point on, I fell in love with it. I mean, I started, the more I delved into it, the more I really started enjoying it. I really believe that offensive line coaches can be really good strength coaches. I think they kind of go, because both of them are very progression oriented. And also, as an offensive line coach, you have to master the mundane. It is the same thing over and over. Those steps that you take, it's just over and over and over again. And that's why a lot of sport coaches go in a weight room and they get bored. This, how many times can I watch a kid squat? Well, as strength coaches, we love it, right? And so it's kind of the same kind of mental process as far as coaching goes. And I just fell in love with it, man. And I don't even coaching. I don't coach sports anymore. I've gone completely full time strength and conditioning. So here I am.
I love that intro. And here's another thing that I think is always cool is when a sport coach makes the transition into being a strength coach. And I think there's a lot to be said about the things that you can learn from the field or court or mat or track or whatever you're coaching, and how it translates to the weight room. And you had a great analogy or way to relate, like just the same way that you progress an O-lineman, how you can progress in the weight room. And I just think that just gives coaches an edge. Strength coaches that have had sport background, I think, are better. And
in my opinion, I think it's really important. I know, strength coaches that are coming out of college and they know that that's what they want to do. I've had a couple of young kids that are actually at University of Alabama that come up and kind of shadowed and watched and sat down and talked with them and those kind of things. And I encourage them to coach a sport. It helps you relate with kids and learn how to relate with them. And it'll help you learn how to coach. In my opinion, that's one thing that you don't learn in college. You don't learn how to coach. Okay. You learn material. And there's a huge difference in knowledge and wisdom. There's a big difference there, right? With wisdom, you're able to apply knowledge to a situation. And that's how you get out on that. It's like becoming a good strength coach. You get on the floor and you coach your face off. Well, that can, getting out on the field and coaching a sport can help you with that, whether that's soccer, softball, football, whatever it is. The more time you spend coaching, the better off you're going to be, because in the long run, regardless of whether you're coaching a sport or, strength and conditioning, whatever it is, you have to be able to communicate effectively, and it can help you, doing that. The other thing I believe in 100%. I told those two young kids not long ago is find a group of 12, 13-year-old kids and coach them. You find young kid, you have to coach those kids. You can't rely on athletic ability and those kind of things to kind of cover up your shortcomings. So I encouraged her. I said, go find you and do it for free if you have to. Go find you a group of 10, 13-year-old kids and train them for free. And you do that for a few months, and it's going to help you be a better coach,
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. When you you hear people talk about, and this is becoming more prevalent, the statement that like the younger ages that you coach makes you a better coach, or you'll find better coaches at the younger ages than you will at the pro level, just because you have to coach that much more. And it's awesome to see that, and I'm sure there's great coaches at every level. But one of the things that, namesake of the show with the Big Time Strength podcast is, it's high school age, it's middle school, it's small college, it's just this idea that like there are so many levels out there that need really solid coaching. And what are we going to do to get there?
I coached at the Division I level in football, and I coached in FCS, and I've coached against and known a lot of Division II coaches, and of course I'm in high school right now. And I'm going to tell you, in a lot of ways, and I hope people don't take this the wrong way, because people can, I think the audience of this will be okay with it. But in a lot of ways, your better coaches are actually in smaller places. Why? Because you got to coach. You can't rely. Look, I've known some people at some shockingly huge programs. Put it this way, one of them played last night, okay, that the coaches there couldn't coach their way out of a wet paper sack, okay? But you go somewhere in a smaller program, and those guys have got to coach to be able to get out of their team, whatever it is. They got to get it out of them. They can't rely on a guy just being a freak athlete and those kind of things. You got to learn how to coach. And when I was in FCS, Wofford College, they were rolling back in the mid 2000s, and their coaching staff did more with little than any coaching staff I'd been around. And so I think it's that way in strength as well. I mean, you got to, I just got to meet and talk with Trent Caldwell up at Lenore Ryan at the South Carolina High School coaches clinic. We both spoke at it, and he's killing it up there, man. Just killing it, And so I think there's a lot of validity in that. I really do.
Well, and one of the things that you'll notice, a lot of times it's the nose to the grindstone, these small colleges, you don't get much recognition, those type of things. And a lot of times those coaches, it's like, I don't know, the amount of people that we've had on the podcast, they're super excited to come on because they listen to the podcast and that type of stuff, but they're so busy coaching, it's hard to do anything else. Yeah. And so they're just getting better at their craft, right? Every single day they're just in the trenches.
You got to be able to adapt. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you don't have certain equipment and those kind of things, you have to figure out a way. Why? Because your kids they depend on you to get them as good as they can be. And so you have to be able to think on your feet. And again, that's a part of coaching, I mean, I'm a 100% believer in what we're saying, no doubt.
Yeah, there's one quote that I want to add on to this just for a bow tie, and then we can move on. But there's a quote that's something to the effect of, when your resources go down, your resourcefulness needs to go up.
No question.
And I think that's awesome, because I mean, my dad grew up on a farm. I grew up on like a small 4-H farm. So it's like this idea of farmering something up. All it is just, okay, whatever you got, you're going to figure out how to get this done. You're going to problem solve something. And one of my co-hosts on here, a couple of them actually, maybe 3 are farmers. So it's this idea of this, like, you figure out how to get something done. And that happens a lot at small places, right? So
you figure it out. People rely on you to figure it out.
Yes. So one of the things that you have to do as a strength coach, as a sport coach, or whatever it is you got to learn, you got to grow, you got to get better. What are some of the resources and tools and things that you like to go to just to get better? Some of the things that you're reading or watching or listening to just get the next edge or the next level.
Well, believe it or not, for all its bads, Twitter has been a great place for me. I've gotten to know a lot of people on here. I think if you filter your content enough and figure out who to follow and those kind of things, it can be a really, really good place to learn and grow. I've gotten to know a lot of people through Twitter. Just kind of starting interacting there and then getting their phone number and then doing things like Zooms and all that kind of stuff has been, tremendous for me. And then I kind of figure out, who, I don't believe, I try to keep an open mind. So, when you're dealing with something like speed training and those kind of things, I try to go across the board, because I don't think anybody's right all the time, if that makes sense. I think if you can't think for yourself, you're in trouble. So I try to go into a little bit of everybody's kind of philosophies and try to pick some things out of those. Right now I'm into Les Spellman stuff, doing the art of acceleration. I'm looking at some of his stuff. I just finished his Pillars series. Really interested in that. I'm a big believer in acceleration in field and court sports. I think that's a huge piece of what we do. Not that I'm not a max velo guy, but I think acceleration is huge in field and court sports. So I'm kind of into his stuff right now. I've been into Tony Villani's. He's kind of coming out with his courses, and I was kind of a part of his early group with that. I like a lot of the things that he does as well. So I just kind of pick, I try to do a little research, and then if something grabs my eye, I kind of get into it. Joe Ken was huge for me when I first started doing this, because I wasn't, when I first got in, I didn't really know what I was doing. And the tier system, man, I've got his book sitting right there, and that thing is highlighted, and there's writing all in the margins and all that kind of thing. And he got me, I told him this a month or so ago. He was at that clinic we spoke at, and he got me organized in a really, really big way. And I do a lot of reading. I know y'all have done some roundtables on Cal stuff, and so I listen to that. I try to delve in and learn as much as I can, and try to apply what fits our situation and what I think can help our kids.
One of the things that I think Joe Ken has done for so many people, and I speak because I was a young strength coach, that my college strength coach, he was a conjugate guy, and Joe Ken's style, this tier training was just different for me in the way that I thought about things. And there's still stuff that's conjugate within tier, but it was just a different way to set up a program. And I think he just let people organize and categorize and then become creative within some sort of system. Right. And then people are like, oh, I don't have to do it exactly like Joe. And Joe never said anybody had to do it exactly like him, but it was just like this eye-opening experience for a lot of people. And what I've been doing here recently, and kind of, I think a lot of people have, is just like going through every area of your program. Like, how can you categorize and structure for speed and for med ball throws and for, change of direction and agility. And it's just like everything you can really kind of get an idea, and that allows you to be creative. And then that gives some structure to the program, but it also gives you the opportunity to continue to make stuff fresh for kids and make it, engaging. So I think that's awesome. I think a lot of times that's just what people need, right? Just to start off so that it can get the thought process rolling.
Absolutely. I think that's the greatest part about the tier system, is it will organize you immediately. And, working in high schools, and there's high school strength coaches that are dealing with, 600 athletes a day, and if you don't have a laid out, organized system for what you're doing, that whole thing will chew you up and spit you out. And that's why I think something like his tier system helps. And I use it. I've taken some liberties with it since I've kind of grown in my programming and that kind of thing. But it's always kind of, it's in the back of my mind when I'm programming is, the tier setup and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's the culture of your program? What would it feel like if I was entering in, I was a student athlete in your program, and what are some of the things that you want it to feel like for those kids coming through?
Well, I think the first thing is hard work. We try to build, whether that's with some of my female teams or with our football team or whatever, we want to establish a culture. And I use that word culture because it gets thrown around, so much. It's almost like people think culture is some sort of aura around the building or whatever it is. And, in my opinion, culture is nothing but who each individual is, what their makeup is, what they stand for, what they're all about. And then you take each individual and you put them in a collective group and it becomes that culture, right? And so I think I tell our guys and girls all the time when they enter that door into the weight room or they go onto the field that we're there to work, okay? And with that, on the other side of it, we try to have fun, okay? I think it's important to remember that, and this is hard sometimes for strength coaches to understand, but they are not weightlifters. They are not. They are athletes to play a sport. Okay, and whether you like it or not, a lot of those kids they don't like working out. And if you don't believe that, then open your weight room over Christmas and say, hey, open workouts. Now, some of your kids are going to come, and those are the kids that really enjoy it. But there's a lot of kids that are going to take their break, and get away from it. So I think it's important to understand that they're there to get better for their sport. And so now to do that, it takes a lot of hard work. But if you're not allowing them and fostering an environment of having some fun with it, then it becomes a place of drudgery. And that's absolutely not what I want. So we do work hard, but at the same time, I'll tell you this, the other morning, our softball girls broke out in dance. It was like a dang line dance in the middle of the weight room in between sets. And hey, I'm all about it, right? Because, we had several girls hit their best trap bar deadlift in between that. And if they want to break out and dance, hey, let's do it. So they're working hard, but they're having fun at the same time. It's the same kind of thing. Some people may come in, especially, old school football coaches would come in with our guys, our football guys lifting. And, it's not this militaristic atmosphere. We got loud music rolling. As long as we're in a place in our training where we can crank that music we're going to, and they may be in there dancing and rapping and whatever, but in between, that's always in between sets, right? So they're going to get their work in, and then we're going to have a good time. So hopefully it's about hard work and having fun.
That's awesome. I think, when you compare those two things together, most people will show up and they'll expect, they'll have expectations of how they think things should go. So that's a lot of fun. What are some of the methodologies, some of the programming methodologies that you like to hang your hat on? So you talked a little bit about the tier system, but maybe just go into what it looks like for somebody coming in, ground zero type stuff all the way through.
Well, I'm fortunate enough that I start out at our high school and then I go over to our middle school in the middle of the day, and then I come back to the high school. And so it just kind of depends. I'm actually coaching kids from 7 through 12. Okay. And right now, the way we're set up, our school is fairly new. It's built in 2008. When they did build the school, they did not give a lot of thought into the training of athletes as far as the weight room goes. And right now we're in the middle of trying to rectify that situation. Hopefully that gets done. I'm hoping for some good news here pretty soon about getting a new big time facility in our small time place. But we're not set up for me to train all of our athletes in our school right now. I try to work with coaches that need help with programming and those kind of things. But right now, I work with football and softball primarily, and I also help with track as well. So I start out at the high school with our freshman football players, and then that's first thing in the morning. Then I go over to the middle school, and I train as many of our boys over there as possible, regardless of sport. And I don't get mad at me. We are working on getting the girls into that as well. Okay. There's only one of me. When we first started doing this, I was going over there working because when I first started, I was working with our football program only. And so I was going to the middle school to work with the football players. And then I started opening it up to as many boys as I could get into that weight room as possible. We were getting them in. And then I started training our middle school softball girls. And so I'm working with some of those girls. So the plan right now, my master plan is I have about a 2-year plan that I'm trying to get into place. I want to hire a full-time coach at our middle school that has a strength training class, and it's an elective that any athlete can sign up for. So it will be co-ed, and we're on a 7-period day to where that person has the strength training class 1 period a day, and it's for 6 periods, and they are running strength and conditioning, and really it'll be more coordination work and speed work and those kind of things. But I'm trying to hire somebody, and I've got somebody in my hip pocket that I'm trying to hire down there full time. That's my ultimate goal. And then in the afternoons, I come back over. I come back over to the high school, and so that's kind of how we're set up. I train our softball girls. Our softball program is legit here. It is, I mean, it is legit. And our girls, and I know, and part of this is logistics, but it is what it is. Our softball girls have been training at 5:30 a.m. until 7 since the middle of September. They go all the way till Christmas, and then they go all the way through January. And what's amazing about that, it's 7 through 12. So shout out to the parents that we had out of our 51 girls, and this includes the multi-sport girls that weren't coming to this training that were playing other sports. We had 29 girls that didn't miss a day unexcused. So it is, you're talking about bought in. Those girls are bought in. You're talking about 3 days a week for almost 5 months. They show up and they get better. I think that's a sign of, we were talking about culture earlier. You know, it's hard to establish a culture without your sport coach being heavily involved in that. And our head softball coach is, she is awesome. And so those girls have been doing that. And they'll transition over into the afternoons here in the next 2 weeks. When they start getting close to end season, they start practice on the 31st of January. So they'll go, you know, they'll start training in the afternoons at that point. So
That's awesome to have that commitment, especially that early, you know, for that long.
it's unbelievable, man. I mean, it really is. I mean, and my daughter's one of them. She's in 8th grade. She plays softball, and she actually leaves the house a little earlier than everybody else. I'm here by 5 in the morning, and we've got training tomorrow morning. So you know, she gets up and gets after it every day.
That's great stuff. Then tell me what this looks like then. You got a group of, you said 7th grade through 12th grade, right?
Mm-hmm.
All in the same weight room at the same time, early in the morning. How do you structure it? What's it look like to organize that? Because I know there's so many ways that you can get it done, but a lot of times it's nice just to be able to utilize the older girls, you know, while training the younger girls. So what's it look like?
And that's where one of the young strength coaches that came over, she finally said, kind of at the end of the session, she was watching me and she was like, how do you do this? Because there was so many kids in so many different places and what they were doing in the weight room, you know. I think if you do a good job of coaching, your older kids are going to get to a point that if my kids can't go in a weight room and lift with great intent and lift with great technical skill, I haven't done my job. Okay. So I float the room, but when I feel really good about them, I'm going to spend a little bit more time with my younger girls. And I do have some of our position coaches, our middle school coaches will show up and they help me with those girls. So they kind of start out on a block zero, if that's what you want to term it. So I've got those girls are progressing through from 7th all the way up till 12th grade. And it depends on where they are. So I have my 7th grade girls that had just come out of 6th grade that have never done anything, right? So I'm trying, big time into them, just movement is just establishing motor patterns, okay? And teaching them how to squat. So, they'll goblet squat I actually use milk crates. Free tool, man. Go to the lunchroom. Your lunch, your lunch people will give you free milk crates, but they'll box squat, in quotation marks, to the box. But it's really just more about establishing that motor pattern with a goblet squat. And then you may go over to the next series of racks where I've got my 8th graders that had been with me all as a 7th grader. And so they're starting right now. I have my 8th grade girls, they're front squatting. They had gone from a goblet squat into a hands-free squat. And we'll stay in the hands-free for 2 weeks or so. And at the same time, I'll be working on their front rack. So they'll just work a front rack ISO hold while they are doing the hands-free squat. And when they come out of the goblet squat, and I know this, I'm jumping around, they'll come out of the goblet squat and we'll start Zercher squatting them. Okay. Because I can load that pattern and in a real easy way. I think the Zercher is a lot like the trap bar deadlift. They self-organize with it. And I know a lot of people, they don't understand it. They don't like the Zercher. But in a lot of ways, it promotes posterior tilt. It promotes stacking of the rib cage. It teaches a lot of really good patterns that carry over to the front squat. So they will be loading that Zercher after they come out of the goblet. They'll be working a front rack ISO hold to get them ready to front squat. And once they're kind of get to that point, I'll take them to that hands-free squat just to work the position and the control of it. And then they'll move on to the front squat. So then you may go up to my 9th graders and they're still front squatting. A lot of my 9th and 10th graders are still front squatting. They're going to master that front squat before I ever let them put a bar on their back. They kind of have to earn that. And then, so I'll have girls for everything from a goblet to a Zercher to a front squat, and we'll back squat. And I'm big. We have safety squat bars in every rack. So I let them choose whether they want to use a safety squat bar to squat or back squat. My daughter prefers the back squat, so she back squats. And she's just in 8th grade, but she's a little different. She's been training for several years now. But I have, our strongest girl, she prefers the safety squat bar. And so she's on that. So once I teach them the patterns, to me, I let them kind of go with what's comfortable once they get to that point. But they got to earn that through the front squat. That's just kind of my rule and all those kind of things, At the same time, I get those girls, the young girls, they'll be kettlebell deadlifting in 7th grade. But as soon as I can get them on a trap bar, they get in it. Okay. And this, I say girls because we just been talking about my 7 through 12 softball girls, but it's the same thing at the middle school. If I can get them, as soon as I can get them in a trap bar to deadlift, we do that. And so they will start trap bar deadlifting from that point. And that's kind of the lift that they're going to do all the way through, their senior year. And we've got several girls pulling over 300 pounds now. for reps. Had 3 girls last week hit 320, 6 sets of 3. So they're bought in and seeing results from it and all that kind of thing. So our weight room is it to somebody that walks in, it may seem like a lot's going on, but there's a method to the madness, and the kids know how to progress, and they know that I'm going to let them progress when they're ready to progress.
How do you organize that? Is that something where you use a software like TeamBuildr or Train Heroic or something like that, or is this all done?
I use Cody Hughes, his templates. Funny enough, if you hadn't used them, man, they're freaking awesome. What happened with that whole deal is I've been working trying to figure out Excel and all that kind of thing for a couple of years, and last year I sent him, because he's a guru on all that stuff, man, all those formulas and all that. I sent him a copy of what I thought was my masterpiece. I'd been working on this thing for 2 years, and he started asking me questions about it. And next thing I know, a week later, he sends me back the prototype to the template he's been selling. And it is exactly what I was trying to build. He just cut out several steps. So every 3 steps I had to take, he had 1 step built in. And I was like, Cody, you got to sell this thing. He was like, what? I was like, I'm telling you, sell the thing. You can sell this. And he's done real well with it. I know a lot of people that have been using it. And, but that's what I program through is with that. I've thought about TeamBuildr and those kind of things, but I've kind of gotten used to this template, and it's because it kind of stemmed with what was in my head. I'm really, really comfortable with it. And so I use it, and I print out sheets for all our kids, and they kind of know, you can prescribe loads for them and those kind of things. So that's what I use.
That's awesome. It's got to be comfortable for you. It's got to be comfortable for the kids, right? That's great. One of the things that just piques my interest, I guess, is just that commitment level that you have and the amount of girls that you've got pulling that heavy. I'd love just to see the transitions, right? Of like going from, I'm coming in as a 7th grader or 8th grader or whatever, to like, okay, I'm here, I'm full in, and I'm pulling some heavy weight. Like that's pretty awesome. I'd love to see that I don't know, progression of girls just going from I'm here to I'm in.
It's awesome. It is really, really awesome. And it can be really challenging at first to have so many kids in that vast of a difference in ability. But I'm telling you right now, it is 100% gold for those 7th graders to see those older girls pulling all that weight, because they know, I'm sorry. They know at one point, if they work hard, which is our number one thing, is we're going to work hard when we walk in this room. They understand that one day they're going to be doing that. And, you always have the stigma with girls worrying about, or am I going to look like a boy if I lift heavy and those kind of things, and they see that it's not happening, right? That's, Kenley is freakishly strong, and yes, she doesn't look like a boy or whatever, but she is crazy strong. So that helps with that culture or that buy-in for those kids, and they just work that much harder. My daughter is a lot like that. She's had the benefit of, I started training her when she was about 9.5. And I say training, I mean, just working movement, right? In the garage, just working squats and those, air squats and those kind of things. But she actually in 8th grade, she trains with the varsity girls because she's just, she's that far along, but she's constantly trying to push herself. And I actually have to bring her back. I have to reel her in a little bit. And I tell her, baby, look, you're 14. Okay. It'll come. Don't try to make too big a jump too soon. So I'm a big believer. And Pat Basil and I actually talked about this not long ago. We're kind of on the same wavelength with this. But back in June, when we started with these girls in the summer, I start my softball girls, their calendar year starts in June because that just fits with the softball season. But we started on a baseline number. So say for deadlift or trap bar deadlift, they started at a baseline number and something that they could hit 5 sets of 5 comfortably, okay, for 5 reps. And we set that baseline, and then every week they just add 5 pounds. They just add 5 pounds. They just add 5 pounds. They add 5 pounds. And like I said the other day, we went to triples. We came out of the 5x5 and went to triples the second week of December. And we had 3 girls over 300 pounds. We had 15 of the varsity girls were 225 or higher, pulling 6 sets of 3. And it's just simply just adding 5 pounds every week. And I had some questions because I'll post some videos or whatever about, with our girls deadlifting, and they're like, do you ever see them running out of grip strength? And by going with that model of I ride that thing as long as possible, because consistency is the most important thing for high school kids. Just training, week after week, week after week, week after week. Their grip strength comes along with their total body strength. Okay. So and one of the best things happened to our strongest girl, and somewhere around October, like anything else, she miscalculated her math on the bar. And she actually jumped because she was getting close to going to 275, right? So, you go from 2 plates on the bar to now you're going toward 3. She miscalculated and she went up 20 pounds and she couldn't pull the weight. Whereas the week before that, she didn't have any issues, right? And I said, well, hey, look, Kenley, you went up 20 pounds. I said, let's go back down and go where you're supposed to be. And sure enough, boom, she got right back on it and she was pulling her weight and had no issues with her grip strength after that. So small wins like that gets that buy-in for you. And, they've continued it, and I'm going to ride that train as long as I can. So
we've essentially done the same thing, probably for the last 5 years, where we also have 1.25 pound plates. So we can go up 2.5 at a time.
Yeah.
And depending on how they do the week prior, they can either go up 2.5 or 5. And sometimes they stay the same. Sometimes they go down based off of performance. It's just a variation of APRE.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, you're going to run out of the ability with linear, periodization. And then at that point, you're going to have to figure out if you're going to run cycles, what is it you're going to do? But most of the time that doesn't happen. It's your older kids that you end up having to kind of do that with,
Right.
I'm just looking for consistency. Be honest with you. I don't care how much weight's on the bar. I really do. They're going to load, and I know where they should be, but I have no issues with hey, cut 10 pounds, just go down. Obviously you don't feel real good today. Let's go down. Okay. Don't worry about it. Go down. Let's hit all our reps, all our sets. Okay. And then, hey, we'll get back on it and we'll go. So as long as you're in, and that also helps with that buy-in. That kid, I had a mom tell me a couple of months ago that her daughter said that Coach Herring doesn't try to make me do things I can't do. And I was like, yes, no doubt. I want them to feel good about what they're doing. And as long as they're doing that and they're consistently working just over time, it's going to, that consistency. And that's what Missy talks about so much is, full-time consistency beats part-time intensity. I'm a 100% believer in that. If you can keep them consistently coming in the room, they're going to continue to get better, and then once you hit a certain point, then you got to adjust. And I'm a big believer in individually programming. I mean, this past year I had a defensive lineman He's actually leaving tomorrow to go to Texas. He's an early grad. He graduated midterm, and he was just a freak. I mean, I mean, there's no genetic freak. Okay. And I had to program differently from him. I individually programmed for him different than any other kid on our football team because he needed it. You get to a certain point with, say like a push press. He's moving so much weight that I started jerking him. And I'm sitting there one day and he split jerking 325. And so I'm moving him to a behind the neck split jerk, just trying to kind of slow him down just a little bit because you're putting that much weight above your head in the front rack, man. It's crazy. But I individually programmed for him. I did a lot of velocity based work with him. He did some different things, but then also in the same exact room, I've got my, backup DB that, man, he just needs to get stronger. And so he's on a whole different kind of program, So I think Clay Bewley said, you program for all of your 80% of your middle kids, and then you those other 20% on the upper end and the lower end, you individually, program for them. And I'm 100% believer in that. Give your kids what they need, meet them where they are.
Yeah, I think that's great, just to be able to morph it to what they need. And honestly, that's what kids want, is they want people that can help them with the next step, right? Like, okay, this is where I'm at right now. I want help with the next step. So that's awesome that you're able to do that for whoever it is, if it's the low end or top end or whatever you want to call it. So that's awesome. Coach, you mentioned a little bit, you talked about a 2-year plan, and you're just talking about how you want a full-time coach at the middle school. What's it look like for your program? What's your vision for your program for the next 5 years? Where you want to be at? What are the things that you want to have accomplished? What are some of the things that you're looking forward to there?
Well, if we are working currently on building a new facility, and ultimately I would love to have myself and be able to hire another strength coach along with me, and we're able to service all of our athletes, whatever that looks like. It's a little bit of a challenge for us because we're on periods. Obviously, if you're on blocks, then I think that helps you in a big way, just with time aspect. And if you have a large facility and you can hold, a lot of kids, that time helps you. Whereas if, you're on periods, you're rushing, all the time and those kind of things. But there's a lot of people, and the NHSSCA is a great place. You can you can find somebody that is facing the same issues as you. And so I think with the way we're structured, it would be some teams would be prior to school, and then some teams would be after school. And we're planning on building a facility big enough that we can house a lot of kids at the same time. So we may have our men's and women's basketball team in the weight room at the same time, and baseball and softball in the weight room all at the same time, and be able to house that many kids. And hopefully that's the facility that we're working on building. And we're also we're trying to get an indoor, kind of a pavilion style indoor 60-yard indoor built on that. So you can do a lot of your speed training and any kind of movement prep kind of work. And that's going to be right off of the weight room. So everything's kind of going to be in the same area. So that I think would be a huge deal if we can, get multiple teams in there with myself and another strength coach. And whether we kind of split sports and program for them ourselves, I think we would have to just kind of see how that works. But that's kind of ultimately where I see our high school at. And then, our middle school, if I can, I'm going to try to tie in with this new facility. We have a really good weight room for a middle school. A lot of middle schools just struggle with that, but we also have some room to improve there. I've got a room on the other side of the weight room where I can knock a wall out and make it even bigger. And so if I can tie that in with this new facility, that's absolutely what I want to do. And then we can run co-ed classes down at the middle school, and we're servicing all of our athletes 7 through 12. That's ultimately what I want to do. And we'll see if I can get it done. But, the administration's open to it. We just got to logistically make it work,
That's awesome. I think to be fully implemented 7 through 12 is an unreal spot to be at. And I know there's schools that are at that point, but this is my 6th year at Mount Vernon, and we're still working on trying to get what it looks like at the middle school. So we've got start of it, but still not fully implemented in the same way that you talk about it. So,
and it's hard. I pull kids out of their PE class down there right now. So I go down there, I'm there for 4 periods a day, and they go into PE, and I pull kids out. We go to the weight room. And so that's how we're doing it now. But ultimately, I'd love to have it to where it was an elective. And so if you're an athlete, whether you're a softball girl or you're a track or football boy or whatever it is that, you're training, and especially that's great for, your multi-sport kids and those kind of things. I've kind of got a guy that is interested in the job, and, we'll see if we can get it done. I hope I can.
That'd be sweet, Coach. So, for our listeners, we're going to do one more section. We're going to do a speed training section for Coach also. We'll make that kind of like a bonus show. So we'll put this one out, and then we'll sometime within that same week, we'll put out this section just specifically for speed training and what he's doing and how he's getting it done. Before we get to that, and we're finishing up this segment or this part of the show, we're going to just ask Coach how he's making the big time, where he's at. So namesake of the show. Obviously, if anybody follows you on Twitter or anybody's listened to this so far, they can tell you're a passionate guy. You're the weights guy. And I just want to hear how you're making the big time.
Man, I don't know. I know you asked this to everybody, and I'm trying to figure out, thought about how to answer this. Trying to make the big time, man, I'm just trying to help kids reach their potential. Not just as an athlete, but as a person. If I can invest in them, and hopefully one day they come back and say, Coach, you were right, about whatever it is, some little things like the importance of being on time and those kind of things. I think that is going to be the big time for them when they get out into the world and they're able to revert on some things that they learned. And that doesn't mean, regardless of how good an athlete they were, that could be, the kid I just got through talking about that's going to Texas, or it could be a kid that hardly ever, walked on the field. But if he had a good experience in high school, I think that's the most important thing, is that you're trying to help those kids. And we talk about personal excellence in our programs. You should be constantly trying to raise your potential. Okay. Your ceiling should constantly be moving. Okay. So the harder you work, the bigger tank you get. And so, you're never going to catch it, but you should always be striving to catch it. So I think, to me, that's the big time feel would be getting kids to a point to where they are absolutely chasing their personal excellence. That's what I really want.
I think that's one of the best one that I've heard. That's awesome. I think that anytime kids can come away from a strength and conditioning program and be better for it. And I think your words was, as an athlete and as a person, I think that's the track that we want to be on. So very good. Thanks, Coach. So we're going to have a speed training segment where Coach will take you through exactly what he's doing speed-wise. So be on the lookout for that. I want to thank Coach for coming on. This will conclude this portion of the show, and just thankful for him taking time to do this and to learn from him. So thanks, Coach.
Appreciate you.